industry discussions. And we are hoping that you are going to gain much knowledge and insight from this session that we are going to have at this time. So the discussion for us this afternoon, the topic is Understanding Swissmedic MAGHP and its role in health product security in Africa, a focus on national regulatory authorities. And quickly, before we get into the webinar, we'll just go through a few housekeeping rules so that we know how we are going to conduct ourselves. So please feel free to use the chat box to introduce yourself and let us know where you are joining us from, which country in particular. Also, please note that the camera and your microphone is off. In case you have a question that you'd like to voice, do raise your hand and we will unmute you. Preferably, you may use the chat box or the Q&A box to ask your question. The presenter will take time to answer as many questions as he can at the end of the presentation. So at this point, I would like to welcome Dr. David to take us through an overview of African Pharmaceutical Network so that we can be able to understand the organization that we are dealing with this afternoon and from where we are from. Thank you. David, over to you.
Thank you, Juliet, and thank you everyone for joining us. Great. I hope you all can hear me well from wherever you are. Maybe just confirm with me, thumbs up. Perfect. Great. So Odhiambo David is my name. I'm a pharmacist by profession, practicing in Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm part of the founding team of African Pharmaceutical Network. So my role in this particular session is just to give a brief overview of what African Pharmaceutical Network is, what we do, how we're working together, then also just a prelude into why this conversation that we're having today is important in the scope of what we do and what we envision for the future of the African pharmaceutical landscape for what it is. So African Pharmaceutical Network was established in 2020 on the backdrop of COVID-19. And as an organization, our aim was to bring together stakeholders and organizations working in the pharmaceutical industry in Africa, one for knowledge sharing, for policy shaping and innovation nurturing partnerships that could drive us towards ensuring there's reliable access to safe, effective and quality pharmaceutical products and services to the African people and the people within the African continent. And that was on the understanding that as a continent, there were concerns that were coming up, and most of these were driven by the fact that COVID is here, we are having disparities in access to care, but also weaker healthcare systems that needs to be strengthened. But the concern that we had when we were coming up with the idea is that players within the pharmaceutical industry, from the professional stakeholders and organizations and even the pharmaceutical players, that is the pharmaceutical companies, were not actively leading the conversation, leading the charge to see what priorities do we need to put in place to ensure that we're able to achieve that aspired future for us as a continent. And therefore, then there was need to bring people together. And that is why we noted there that let us have a platform that could bring us together. And with that platform, we would be able to now take charge and start shaping conversations, start forming partnerships, start offering the technical support where we would need it, whatever it is going to be. Then in that journey, we're able to unlock possibilities for the continent for what it is. So guided by that, we looked at the landscape, and the background of the continent in terms of the pharmaceutical landscape at that time was limited local manufacturing. And this has been a conversation in the continent, and it's a conversation that has been there from time immemorial. When you look at the 1991 Declaration of Abuja in Nigeria, one of the key pieces was how do we ensure there's reliable access to therapeutics and products that would be needed. And especially at that point, the conversation was around HIV, AIDS, TB, and malaria. Different platforms were constituted. What could happen? How could it happen? But over that journey from 1991, we get to 2005, the African Union heads of states endorsed the pharmaceutical manufacturing plan for Africa. In 2021, officially it is satisfied, and actually the concept has been approved. In 2012, the business plan is rolled out. We are moving forward. How far have we gone? What are still the gaps? There's still lots to be done. We have 70 to 90% of pharmaceutical products in the continent being imported. How do we change that narrative? And even if we're not changing it from a local point of manufacturing, how are we setting the ecosystem to create the impetus and the imperative for the future that we aspire for? Then we have a segregated industry, and that segregated industry is where you'll see most of the conversation we talk about substandard and falsified medicines, gaps in access in different jurisdictions, and the infiltration of counterfeit products into our systems as well. And to a greater extent, when you look at it, even from the conversation that we'll be having today about the Swissmedic MAGHP program, you'll realize that the scientific technical advice, you'll have clinical teams working within the clinical domain, the regulatory people working within the regulatory domain, but these people are regulating or working with the same pharmaceutical product. What if we could share insights and experiences that would make the functions of the next person better? And on the same note, you could look at it from the point that the person we are offering this solution to, from research and development to the pharmacist offering patient bedside care, is to the patient, which is a single individual. How then can we share experiences to make the final product and the final outcome be ideal for what we aspire for? So that segregation in the different domains we work with is a key piece that needed to be addressed. And there was no clear common platform that would bring us together. And therefore, we saw it fit to establish that platform. So with that background, then the question is, what is our aim as an organization? How do we move forward? So based on that background, our aim was on 4 pillars. 1, to foster continental knowledge sharing and workforce development. And in the essence of it is, you can only dream to the extent that you are informed. And you can only do what you have knowledge and capacity to execute on. So knowledge sharing and experience sharing would be the key piece. Let's drive capacity development. And this is also supported by the business plan for pharmaceutical manufacturing, in the essence that for us to have this impact, we need competent professionals. How do we achieve that? So continental knowledge sharing and workforce development became the key piece. And to stimulate best practice and also innovative models of service delivery in the pharmaceutical industry. If we know better, we can do better. And when we're doing better, it's about sharing experiences on this is how Swissmedic is doing their regulatory assessments and their processes. How can we take advantage of that? How does it get products registered in a faster timeline than the conventional 24 months, 3 years or so that we are accustomed to? Then we need to champion for responsive market-driven policies, and this is on the essence that we work in a regulated environment, which means we have to comply with the regulatory requirements, but at the same time, it has to be market responsive in the sense that regulation should not kill innovation. Regulation should support innovation, but at the same time safeguard public health interests, and that is our aspiration. And finally, for all this to work, we need investment, both in financial, human resource, technical capacity. So we need to stimulate that investment. And that is our aspiration, that we are able to stimulate that investment, have an enabling environment from a policy perspective, have best practices, and have competent professionals who are leading the charge to achieve that and to make it a reality. So based on that aim, we work on 3 key pillars. Pharmaceutical workforce development, we do a lot of in industry conversation, and this is one of them. We also have short courses that we're offering as African Pharmaceutical Network, and those are the priorities within the pharmaceutical workforce development, and we're building up on more offerings in that space. Then we have the business ecosystem support, where we look at what are the needs of the players, whether they're people who already exist in the market, people who are aspiring to get into the market. What technical support can we offer? What linkages can we support with? Maybe they need to get talent, and we have some people who are part of our faculty or courses who have been learning with us, people within our networks who are actually looking for opportunities to apply their knowledge and capacity. How do we make that possible? So that is through the business ecosystem support, where businesses, organizations, and entities in the ecosystem who need such support can benefit from our offering. And the last bit is engaging in policy shaping discussions and forums where we're able to share perspective based on experience and actual nuances in the market to lead the charge towards the aspired future that we hope for in a clear, sustainable way. So those are the key priorities of the work we do. And how do we execute? Discussion forums, training and experiential learning opportunities, policy advocacy and environment shaping, market intelligence and technical support, whatever it is that we need to do to make that a reality. And this is the team that works with us. We have an advisory board of 3, McDonald, Kirti, and John Paul Omolo. The secretariat constituted of 2 people, Dr. Lucy Machocho and Ms. Juliet Ouma, who is going to also serve as our moderator for the session. And the leadership team, there's myself, Dr. Odongo Kelvin, Dr. Nyango Esther, Denish Kineni, and Dr. Nushri Patel. So we are the people who've been working and driving these. We have some partnerships, the FIP, the International Pharmaceutical Federation, IFPMA, H3D Foundation based in South Africa, Bloom Public Health, Empower Swiss, Africa Pharmaceutical Forum, which is the African arm of FIP, Agriculture, Health and Social Innovation, and the SPARC are some of our partners. In terms of geographical reach, the countries in blue are countries where we have a presence, and we are still hoping that by the end of 2025, we should have a presence in at least all the 55 African countries. If we're able to do that, then the impact of the work we're doing can gain ground and make an impact in the different jurisdictions and make us achieve the aspiration that we have for the continent. In terms of offerings, we'd be able to share these slides, but it's around the workforce development. I've already talked about it. We have the business ecosystem, the workforce, that is the three courses that we have: regulatory affairs, pharmaceutical supply chain management, and pharmacovigilance and patient safety. Then we have the business ecosystem support. We offer regulatory and clinical research support services where necessary. We offer the additional services in terms of beyond the clinical research and regulatory affairs, the market intelligence, research, business support, and you look at talent management, I already mentioned, business development, pharmaceutical marketing, project management, knowledge management and corporate trainings on critical needs. Then the last bit is on partnerships and policy advocacy. And already pointed out into some of these and some of the key policy areas that we are keen on. Operationalization of AMA, African Medicines Agency, which is critical as well, even for this conversation. Development of a framework on the implementation of Africa Continental Free Trade Area with a focus on the pharmaceutical industry. When we're opening up markets, we also introducing new risks. How do we mitigate those risks? And how do we ensure that the framework looks at the movement of people, movement of products, without compromising on any of the essential drivers of that access that we're looking for? Then local manufacturing, and local manufacturing looking at all the different interfaces and facets of it that needs to be in place for a robust industry. It's not just producing for the sake of producing, but producing products that have the quality, but also with a clear market that can consume the products that are produced. Because if we don't look at that, we'll be missing something critical. Substandard and falsified medicines, having regulatory frameworks to ensure that we're moving as a continent to address these problems that we have in our jurisdiction. And finally, ethical business practices. We cannot drive growth and development when ethics and integrity are thrown out of the window, because then ethics and integrity is what sets the basis foundation for trust, foundation for collaboration, and those collaborations is what will stimulate either investment or chases away. So we have to shape that conversation from that standpoint, and that is an overview of what we do as African Pharmaceutical Network. So in terms of you engaging with us, what would it look like? You have the opportunity to be a member of the network, to partner with us on projects, and to learn with us for the courses that we're offering. Becoming a member, you have the option as an individual member, but also as an institutional membership. We have different categories and whatever the option that you're keen on. And my colleague Juliet would be glad to share that information in the mailing list after the webinar today. So with that, coming to the end of that presentation, then why are we talking about Swissmedic MAGHP and its role in health product security in Africa? Just from the foundation of African Pharmaceutical Network coming into place. One of the key pieces of work that we had a conversation around is that access to healthcare products is important. And if access to healthcare products is important, then how do we make it viable, make it a reality? All medical products that are used in our jurisdiction must be registered, and the timeline that it takes for it to be registered is important. Most innovations might be registered in stringent regulatory authorities in developed markets because we are not having much of the R&D happening in our continent. But therefore, then it means if we can leverage on available platforms and opportunities in the global market to make us get these solutions into our market, that would be a win for us. And the Swissmedic, in collaboration with different national regulatory authorities and the WHO, it developed such a platform, that is the Swissmedic Marketing Authorization for Global Health Products. And on that account, then it means that our regulatory authorities could participate in that regulatory process. And once a product is registered, could bring it into a market. And I know Lodovico will be talking a lot about what that project looks like. But the question is, how do we take advantage of that to make our products accessible in the market faster, earlier, but also make sure that it's a sustainable mechanism that promotes efficient use of resources? I don't think there's need for us to have a product evaluated comprehensively in one NRA, then in Africa, each of our 55 member countries still go through the review process from start to end. Duplication of work, reduction of efficiencies, but also ultimately impacting the access that we are hoping for. And I believe if we are able to take advantage of such novel pathways and implementation procedures, we'd be able to move the continent where we aspire for it to be. I'm hoping, Ludovico, as you make the presentation, you look at the nuances, but we'll also be keen to engage. And I believe we have our National Regulatory Authority representatives in this forum. Share questions, the industry players. Maybe there's something that you feel needs to be addressed in a different way that would make the platforms and the opportunities more viable and more robust for us. We are hoping that this conversation gets us to that point. Thank you, and over to you, Juliet.
Thank you, David, for that elaborate overview of the organization. And at this point, I would like to introduce our speaker of the day so that we can kick off the conversation that is at hand. So who is Lodovico Paganini? He is a public administration specialist by training, holding a Master of Arts degree in Public Management and Policy from the University of Bern, and a Bachelor's of Arts degree in International Affairs from the University of St. Gallen. He joined Swissmedic, the Swiss Agency for Therapeutic Product, in 2018, where he currently holds the position of Scientific Officer within the Stakeholder Engagement Division. Mr. Paganini is a focal person for the strategic and operational coordination of the regulatory system strengthening activities supported and implemented by the Swissmedic in close collaboration with the WHO, the Swiss Development and Cooperation Agency, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and partner authorities in the field. With this, welcome, Lodovico. The session is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juliet. Thank you very much, David. And thank you to the APN team again for approaching us and inviting us to present on the MAGHP. I think this is a really good platform. And last week, we already had the opportunity to share this presentation with the industry. So I'm really looking forward to today's session, targeting NRAs and peer colleagues, fellow regulators, so that we can really also taste the pulse and see what's interesting to you, what advantages you see in the procedure, and how you can interact with us in this procedure. So I will now share my screen and start the presentation. Just a quick second. Can you just quickly confirm if you can see the screen? Great.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, you can see it.
Perfect. Thank you, Juliet. I will give you, first of all, a brief overview of what the MAGHP is, what the goal is. Then we'll look into the details, how it works, what we expect from the collaboration with the participating NRAs. We'll have a look at the milestones, timelines, ways of interacting, and then conclude with some with a case study, with some lessons learned, and how we want to continue to develop this procedure. So, what is the MAGHP? It is basically based on the idea to involve regional, national regulatory agencies and the WHO into our own assessment processes. So the idea here is to leverage our Swissmedic status as a reference authority, and also recently as a recognized WHO listed authority, to leverage on collaborative regulatory work and target medical needs in the global south. So it is basically intended to be a collaborative platform to harness regulatory expertise from different regulators, to pool resources, limit regulatory duplications, and to ultimately accelerate access. So the procedure as a whole consists of two independent components that ideally should be used subsequently. And the first step, as you can intend it, is the scientific advice, which is intended to clarify scientific questions in the early development phase of a product. And questions here in this case can go around the quality of APIs and the products, or on the planning of preclinical investigations and clinical trials, or even on aspects of pharmacovigilance and RMP. So it's basically an idea to approach developers, manufacturers, to help them and to give some feedback on questions that they have while they are developing a certain product. And then we come to the actual marketing authorization procedure, which is really, as I've mentioned, based on the regular Swissmedic marketing authorization procedure. That means we have the same timeframes, we have the same procedural steps, even the same evaluation criteria, and it results in an authorization for the Swiss market. There is also the possibility to ask for the applicant to ask for a export-only license. This means the product won't be marketed in Switzerland, but still, even in that case, the same procedural steps, the same criteria will apply. But what the difference is in terms of the MAGHP is that we collaborate, we do a collaborative assessment with the targeted NRAs and the WHO that are involved. So I will just really briefly mention the MAGHP Lite, which is something that we've come up during the pandemic, and it's a way for us to be able to apply the MAGHP principles, but in a taking into consideration submissions in the fast track and temporary authorization procedure. So it's meant to be quick. It's meant to for Swissmedic to quickly share assessment reports in times of a pandemic, where we can, upon request by the applicant, we can quickly share these assessment reports with NRAs that are also interested by the product. But let's go back to the actual MAGHP, to the standard one. So in terms of scope and eligibility, as I've mentioned, the goal is to accelerate access to medicinal products, and we focus on the medical need in the Global South. We started off with a focus on the sub-Saharan African region, and we now extended it to really be a global procedure, to have a global focus. And in terms of eligible products, the procedure is limited to new registrations or new indications. So that means the product is not yet registered in Switzerland. And we accept medicinal products with a new active substance as well as with a known active substance. But in terms of therapeutic areas, we do not have any restrictions. So it is open to any products that are deemed to bring a positive impact in terms of targeting, addressing a medical need. And then we'll have now a look and an overview on how it works and what parties are involved. During the last week's presentation, I really stressed the importance of this first point, which is upon the applicant. So it's up to the applicant or any applicant to kickstart the procedure. So we need a request from an applicant to be able to start this procedure. And what the applicant does, it gives us a prior notification with the expressing the interest to participate. We get in contact. They submit all of the documentation together also with the list of targeted NRAs that they would like to include. So even in that case, it's the applicant that first of all shares with us a list of maximum 10 NRAs that they would like to include. And what we do, also with the support from WHO, is we get in touch with you, with the NRAs, and invite you to participate into the procedure. And after having cleared all the formal steps and having signed or collected the signed confidentiality agreements, we are ready to start. We give access to the full documentation as a first step, and then throughout the procedure, as we will see in the next slides, the participating experts and assessors from the NRAs and from WHO will get access to all of the documentation that is produced during the procedure. And as we will see, there will be different ways of modalities of interaction where we collect feedback from our fellow assessors. And then what the applicant also needs to do after or in parallel to the Swissmedic MAGHP procedure is the submission into the different participating NRAs. So this is not something that happens automatically. It's not something that Swissmedic can do, but the actual formal submission in the NRAs needs to be done by the applicant as well. Something else that we can also use to further leverage the MAGHP is the use in parallel to the MAGHP of the collaborative registration procedure from the WHO or and WHO pre-qualification. So this is something also that upon request by the applicant can happen. And if it happens, then WHO can use what is being produced through the MAGHP. The assessment reports can use those to do an abridged assessment of a product. So let's go into the details really of what the involvement and the interactions look like and how we want the procedure really to be a collaborative, engaging procedure between peers. So first of all, I've mentioned all participants get access to the full documentation as it's been submitted to Swissmedic. And of course, what is being produced as in the assessment reports, list of questions, everything, there will be a shared platform, a secured platform where all this information is stored and where all the information can also be elaborated simultaneously. But the key point, I think, is that it's not only about sharing, it's about also getting input. So the Swissmedic assessment team, after having done their preliminary assessment reports, they will ask the participating colleagues, assessors, to provide peer review, basically, of those assessment reports. So it's really a way to harness the resources and expertise from all the participating NRAs, pooling this into one consolidated assessment report. Yes, and also in terms of the list of questions, we really encourage the participating assessors to comment, to add questions, to give any feedback that they deem it's valuable, it's useful to the overall assessment of a product. On top of this type of interaction, the participating assessors are also invited to participate in the meetings that are happening throughout the procedure, being it a scientific advice or a pre-submission meeting, but also then really they have the possibility to engage virtually with the case team during the meetings that they hold during the procedure. So it's really then a way to consolidate any open questions, to discuss any points that still need to be discussed, and to come to a consensus during these case team meetings. And also, if it's applicable, the assessors also can participate in the experts review boards if they take place. What you see in the red box is something that I've already touched upon. So the choice about the NRAs, or if the WHO is participating as an experts board, is with the applicant. So we really ask the applicant to provide us with this list. We then, together with WHO, still look into how we can maybe adjust the list, maybe expand or invite other NRAs to participate. It's up to the applicant, also based on their strategic reasoning on how they want to market the product. And then, of course, as soon as you get invited as a representative of your NRA or WHO, you still have the chance, the option to opt out or to really decide to engage actively in the procedure. So let's have a look at the procedural milestones, which, as you can see from these slides, they basically reflect the regular assessment processes at Swissmedic. We have all the same steps with the two differences, one being the prior notification, which is, and we will see this in detail in the next slide, which is really just for us to have time enough to coordinate with you, with the NRAs that are participating, and prepare for the actual submission and all the steps that will follow. And the second point, which differs from a standard process, is the national decision phase, which is what happens after the Swissmedic decision. So as you can calculate from those numbers below, the NRAs that are participating are expected to make their decision within 90 days. Of course, this is not a hard requirement. Swissmedic is in no position to make the NRAs really commit to those deadlines. It's really more of an indication, also based on what is similar with the WHO collaborative registration procedure and PQ. So this is indicative, but is something that's some sort of target timelines for approval. So again, in the next slides, that you will have more details to each of these milestones and to each of these regulatory steps. Here again, the prior notification, which is really that time that we need to coordinate with WHO, with the NRAs, plan all the internal review processes and so on. It can take up from 3 to 6 months prior to planned submission, so that we really have enough time ahead. Then we receive the formal submission, we validate the dossier, and we can really then begin the actual work, which is take place in two evaluation phases. Evaluation phase 1, which results in the list of questions. And here again, it's meant to work like I've said before, with the Swissmedic assessment team that works on the preliminary assessment reports, shares those reports, and asks the participating assessors to comment, to provide feedback, input, questions, anything into that pours then into this assessment reports. And of course, NRAs are free to also decide to start with their actual formal assessment in-house. That is something that is absolutely okay, and can also be it can also be beneficial, but it's not really a prerequisite. So in the end, through all the collaboration, through the engagement and discussions, the MAGHP will produce a consolidated assessment report, which is also the assessment report that the applicant will most probably submit in the respective jurisdictions. And it's the assessment report that the NRAs will use to rely upon to come to their own decision. Evaluation phase 2, almost identical to the evaluation phase 1. Here is about the review of the answers to the list of questions, but with the same idea behind it, with the same type of proceeding. Then we come to the labeling phase, which could take up to 90 days, but can also be shorter. And then Swissmedic will issue its own decision. So it's the final Swissmedic decision, which has an impact for the Swiss market, but not yet for the NRAs. So what comes next, it's really the last regulatory mile. The really important bit is that this whole interaction will bring then a benefit to the NRAs in terms of reduced accelerated timeline with these 90 calendar days that I've mentioned before. So and 90, this is also important. Then this timeline is calculated from the receipt of the dossier. So the applicant might decide during the procedure if they want to submit in parallel to the MAGHP and the participating NRAs, or if they want to wait at least for the procedure to have reached some type of preliminary decision so that they can submit in the NRAs. And so these 90 calendar days are dependent on the time on which the applicant decides to submit. But as you can see in the last point in red, we encourage the applicant to submit as early as possible, because we really think that this would facilitate the decision process. If the NRAs already have the submission, the dossier in-house, they might be more keen to really engage and provide inputs to them into the procedure. So in terms of cooperation with WHO, I've mentioned in the beginning, we really rely on WHO on the administrative organizational part to be as some sort of liaison with the NRAs. So it's if you ever get an invitation to participate in the MAGHP, it will be through WHO, through the country offices, I suppose, and this then will be reported back to us. Then during the procedure, you will be in direct contact with either me or the case or the regulatory assessor who is in charge of the product. So it's just really to make the contact and to get the participations, the confirmations back. But another way in which WHO can be involved in the procedure is also through their own pathways, like I've mentioned, the collaborative registration procedure. So we continuously exchange with WHO colleagues to really try to optimize these synergies between our pathways, our procedures. And we've established that the use of the collaborative registration procedure is really to be encouraged, since it can be a vehicle to facilitate the provision of assessment and inspection reports following the MAGHP. So it boosts almost the MAGHP. And in addition to that, it's already a really well established mechanism for an effective management of post-marketing changes. So if the applicant decides to apply in parallel to this CRP, then we can really also ensure that the management of post-authorization changes is effectively handled. The CRP further enables an increase to increase the outreach of the procedure. As I've mentioned before, within the MAGHP, we have a maximum number of NRAs that we can integrate. This is purely because of logistical questions to really be able to absorb this number of people into the procedure. But through the CRP, the effect, the decision based on the MAGHP can be boosted, and so we can have a much broader outreach into more NRAs, into more countries. Yes, and if a product is eligible for pre-qualification, then it should also be considered to use the PQ route, which can also be, let's say, that can also leverage the MAGHP to make an abridged assessment. Here you can just see a list of scientific advices that we've recently provided for different type of products. And you can see, and this is something that we've really noticed, is an uptake from the industry. So an increased interest in using this scientific advice, which is something that we currently, the list is even longer. So we are really dealing with an increased interest, and we are really looking forward to it. And this also reflects in terms of actual applications or submissions for the marketing authorization. We have currently 2 ongoing procedures, one for an ophthalmic anesthetic and another for a malaria treatment in babies. And we expect more to come. So also thanks to this kind of events that the APN is organizing, we can really also sensitize the industry to make use of the MAGHP. And in this case, in case of this session, it's really a way to engage with you as fellow regulators to also inform you about what the MAGHP is and the ways that you can interact within this procedure. Now, this is a case study that I've mentioned. So this was a product for prevention of postpartum uterine atony, where we had 8 NRAs involved. As you can see, 7 of those granted authorization, and 3 of those 7 did so in less than 90 days, so within the expected timelines. Overall, the median approval time was a bit higher, was about 5.5 months, which is above the 90 calendar days that we would expect, but it's not. I think it's really good. I think, as David mentioned, when we are confronted with the, let's say, median approval times on the continent or in the global south generally, which can be up to or over 2 or 3 years, I think 5.5 months is a good starting point, something that encouraged us to continue with the MAGHP. And also, you can see in this case, we had also an approval, further approvals through the WHO collaborative registration procedure in Malawi, Ghana, and Zambia. And I think currently the number of countries that have participated in the CRP is even higher. So this is not completely up to date. The MAGHP, or making use or relying on the MAGHP, this product also got positive recommendation from the Caribbean regulatory system, and it has been WHO pre-qualified in an abridged assessment. Then, as I said, based on this first positive outcomes, we continue to advocate and sensitize for the procedure. We had a set of different types of events that we carried out. We had feedbacks and lessons learned from both the industry and the targeted NRAs that participated. We continue to cooperate and align with WHO. And we also had different occasions where we tried to and did collaborate with EMA with their similar procedure, EUM for all, so that we can, on one side, align the same parts of the procedures that also translate into the WHO processes, and differentiate the procedures in terms of what really makes us different. So it's a way also to inform the industry about different choices that they have, different pathways, to inform them in a transparent way what the requirements are for the different procedures, what the benefit or expected benefits are, and how it works. So this is, I think, a really nice way of collaborating also between regulators to not compete, but to really rather have a common goal, which is to make the procedures transparent, to inform the industry so that they can make use of those procedures and make an impact in terms of access to important products. I will, I think, now conclude with some benefits that have, I think, already transpired from what I said. Our list of eligible products is open. There are no restrictions to specific indications or to therapeutic areas. So this might encourage industry to use our procedure. In terms of also, which is probably more of interest to you as regulators, is the fact that the procedure also helps to build trust and confidence in the processes. So as a reference authority, or you as participating in the MAGHP can have a look into the processes and way of assessing of Swissmedic. So you have a look into how we do things. Through the procedure, you further have a way of building capacity, because it's some sort of hands-on, really concrete type of training, if you can put it so. So really, it's a way to collaborate, to exchange knowledge and best practices, and to build capacity within a network of NRAs. And it also produces the consolidated assessment reports, which I've mentioned. So there lies a really a benefit for the applicant, because in those consolidated assessment reports you get country-specific considerations, which can be really helpful for the applicant when it comes to marketing the products in the targeted countries. And ultimately, something that I've mentioned quite a few times now, but just to underline it, the ultimate goal is to really facilitate and speed up the granting of national marketing authorizations. So what we want to do, since we know that Swissmedic as a reference is seen oftentimes as a reference authority from different regulators. So we do not want to encourage a blind reliance on our decisions, but we wanted to really give a way, an option for NRAs that do rely on us to be part of our processes and assessment processes, and to make a well-informed reliance. So this is a little bit the idea behind that, when it comes to relying on decisions made by reference authorities. And with that, I think I've come to a conclusion. I'll leave you with some further ways where you can get informed about the procedure through our website, on the dedicated subpage on the MAGHP, where you'll find some general information, and also the guidance documents, both for the scientific advice and for the actual authorization procedure, and also the general email address where you can ask us any questions related to the MAGHP, which is really simple to remember: maghp@swissmedic.ch. I hope you had it was an informative session, and I'm really happy to take any questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lodovico. That was very elaborate. We have so many questions. And I am glad to see some of us have actually introduced themselves in the chat. We are having a regulatory authority from Egypt, EDA. Her name is Professor Rania. She's the manager of Stability General Administration at the Egyptian Drug Authority. So she had a question. Sorry, before I start with her question, maybe let me just go back to Q&A. Begin with the first question on this side. For scientific advice meeting, what reasons would warrant an applicant to seek a scientific advice, and what is the duration for a scientific advice meeting?
So in terms of reasons, I think this is something that as an applicant, you should really best know better than Swissmedic. But as I've mentioned, it's about maybe questions about the design of the clinical trials, any questions that come up during the development phase where maybe